Welcome to the first lesson of this program. We'll be discussing how to create effective financial goals so that you can create them yourself. First, let's think of a time when plenty of people are setting goals. How about New Year's? How often do people succeed at their New Year's resolutions? Not very often. In fact, University of Scranton research suggests that only 8% of New Year's resolutions are successful. What are some of the reasons for such a low success rate? Often these resolutions aren't specific enough, and sometimes they aren't very realistic. Whatever the reason, many of these failed resolutions are ultimately the result of poor planning. With that in mind, we will be discussing the SMART framework. SMART outlines 5 characteristics that should be present in all well-written goals. The S in SMART stands for specific. Your goal should be as specific as possible. Someone who says they plan to save, in case of an emergency, $50 per paycheck for 20 paychecks, 2 paychecks a month, starting the 1st of January, with a total goal of $1,000 in savings at the end of October, will be far more likely to succeed than someone who simply says that they plan to save money and leaves it at just that. The M in SMART stands for measurable. Your goal should be as measurable as possible. You should be able to easily figure out how much progress you've made. One way to quickly check if your goals are measurable is to see if you can identify a halfway point to accomplish your goal. In our previous financial goal of $1,000 in emergency savings between January 1st and October 31st, the halfway point of that goal would be $500 at the end of May. However, if your goal is simply stated as save money in case of an emergency, what is the halfway point to that goal? You don't know because the goal isn't measurable. Slightly different than some other SMART frameworks, A will stand for adaptable. Things happen in life that you don't expect, and your goal should be adaptable or flexible to account for that. If you have an emergency or get a cut in hours temporarily, your goal should be flexible enough that they can be postponed for a while. The other way to look at this is that your goal should have a little wiggle room. If after creating a spending plan you expect $150 of income over expenses in the best case scenario, should you assume you'll be able to save all $150 every single month? That's probably not very realistic. $75 to $100 might be a better target. R in SMART stands for realistic. Your goals should be challenging, but they should also be realistic for your current situation. Planning to have $5,000 saved up over the next 5 years might be realistic for some, but there are very few people that could come up with $5,000 in additional savings by the end of the week. The last and often most overlooked criteria is having a timetable. You probably have those friends that say they'll save up for a car or start an emergency fund, but they don't set a specific starting date, instead saying they'll do it eventually. How often does eventually actually come around? To help you succeed at your goals, you should always set a realistic starting date and, using your measurable goal, figure out a target ending date as well and commit to it.